Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to start the roundtable on Education 5.0. I request all of you to come and be seated. May I invite Mr. Ramesh Kaza, Managing Director, Chief Information Officer, Head of Strategy and Transformation, ICFO, State Street Bank and Trust India. I request Ms. Sridevi Devareddy, Director, Venture Development Center, Geetham Deemed to be University, Visakhapatnam. I request Mr. Ramesh Loganathan, Professor, Co-Innovation and Head Research, Innovation Outreach, IIIT, Hyderabad. I request Dr. Ravinder Kaur, Professor, Dean, Deen Dayal Upadhyay College, Delhi University. I request Mr. S.V. Nathan, Partner and Chief Talent Officer, Deloitte India. AV, could you please arrange the mics, please? AV, mics, please. Thank you. I hand over the floor to Sridevi Garu to start the round table session.
Thank you. It's okay.
Shall we go ahead and get started? Good afternoon. Thank you for ISF and also Sri Madhusudan Sai, who actually gave us an opportunity to be here and witness something so beautiful where we walked into this place and realized that this could have been the institution where if I had the opportunity to study, how much impact I could have made to myself. So thanks for the opportunity. Let me start off by saying that since I'm an engineer, I'm probably taking an example from the engineering degree courses. Many of you know that we have thousands of engineering colleges across the nation. We are talking about roughly around 1.5 million people coming out of the engineering colleges every year. That's about 15 lakh people. And if you look at the NASSCOM reports, just about 350,000 people are getting into a job industry. This could be hired by the IT and the IT-enabled services industry across the board. And about 1.5 lakh people are probably looking for higher education within the country as well as outside of the country. And what is happening to the rest of the 10 lakh people? We don't have a clarity about that. The second is within this 350,000 people we are hiring today, if you take a specific segment of the industry, that is the banking, financial services, and the insurance sector, which is 4 out of the 10 jobs worldwide belong to this sector. The reality is we welcome the student and we ask them to forget all the 50 subjects they studied on day one. And they have to actually start learning what is required for them to be successful in the job today. That's probably the reason behind this roundtable, Education 5.0. So this is one step. The second story I would like to share with you is, last 3 days, I witnessed many, many great roundtables. I happened to participate in some of them, and I was an audience in many of them. All of them are talking about driving product culture, startup culture, and entrepreneurship mindset about you coming out with ideas where you can drive services out of what we are operating today. And if you have to do that, the first thing required is talent. We need to have a talent that's ready now for the market who can come forward to make a difference around. So today's session is going to be highly interactive among a very eminent panel. And let me tell you that we are no less than a RRR movie. We are actually better than a RRR movie. I have got Ramesh Loganathan there, and I have got Ravinder here, and this is also another Ramesh. So we are 3 Rs, and supported by, of course, Nathan as well as Sridevi. We are even better than a triple R, and we'll make sure we'll make this discussion more meaningful for you. Let me start off by saying that in the current industry where we are today, all of us, one way or the other, know that we are getting educated, but probably we are not really getting into the jobs that are matching to our education. This is barring people who are doing MBBS, medical. It could be people who are doing law and some of the specific courses. But if you look at the current industry, we are talking about the startup ecosystem, you're talking about the IT and the IT-enabled services ecosystem, many, many times the education is not really getting so relevant about. So what I would like to do is to give you an opportunity to hear from this panel. They have come from different backgrounds, and let me actually touch upon some of their backgrounds and connects. Professor Ravinder Kaur is in the education sector for the last 3 decades, having taught thousands of students. And apart from that, she's also well connected to the startup and the entrepreneurship industry. She flew in all the way from Delhi to be a part of this session. Ms. Sridevi is well known to people in Hyderabad in many facets. Apart from working for various startups, she's currently in the academic field, but connecting to bring startup ecosystem into that mindsets as well. And of course, Nathan is more known to people than anyone else, actually. And he says Bangalore is his current home, but his heart is in Hyderabad. Having joined Deloitte when there were just 1,000 people, he witnessed, supported, and also masterminded the HR to ensure that Deloitte US grew to 90,000 people. And on the top of it, currently with Deloitte India, when he joined, there were about 3,000 to 4,000 people. He already grew them to 28,000 people. What a great accomplishment, Nathan, to have you with us today. And I share the same first name with someone that the entire industry in Hyderabad knows. Ramesh Loganathan worked in the IT industry for a very long time, and he chose to take a full-time work with Triple IT Hyderabad, where he's ensuring he's not just a faculty, but also someone who is inspiring students to become better leaders and better entrepreneurs. Such a great team to be. And if you noticed it, these kind of roundtables were always covered with 18 people, 15 people, and we kept the best 4 for today's last roundtable session. So I would like to start off with Professor Ravinder. I know that you are well connected to the national education policy, and you also actually build us a white paper that we are going to share with this group today. Can you touch upon what you think or what is presented in the Education 1.0 to 4.0, and why you think the 5.0 actually is going to be a game changer for us?
A very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Ramesh, for giving me this opportunity to be the first one. Before I actually start, my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers of ISF for giving me this opportunity to be a member of an esteemed panel, as Ramesh has already specified. And also, I think ISF they really deserve a huge round of applause for such a huge success. It's a mammoth task. All of us can feel that organizing something at such a huge scale is very difficult, and it is done seamlessly. So a big round of applause again. Now, coming to the question, Ramesh, you asked about how do we talk about education 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and then to 5.0, the terminology is being used. We know education has always played a pivotal role in the growth and success of any society. And why and how? Because education helps in providing the knowledge, the skills, to the individuals so that they can add value to the system in an effective and efficient manner. Now, over the time, we all know change is the only constant. Our requirements change, our needs change. So throughout our history, over the times, we have seen that education has evolved and has seen so many developments, I would say, depending upon changing economic, technological, or social scenario of the country, of any society. So if we start from our Gurukul, the ancient culture of Indian education system, conventionally we call it as education 1.0. Although some people tend to differ it and they say it's with the industrial revolution, we call it as education 1.0, where the pedagogy used was in such a manner that the teacher was an instructor. He would disseminate the information. It was just the recipients were passive recipients. There was no much interaction. Only information was passed. That was education 1.0. No technology was there. When we went to education 2.0, we talked about student-centric. Education 1.0 was totally teacher-centric, but education 2.0, we started talking about student being the epicenter, but it was only in conversation. Actually, it didn't happen. We had internet somewhere. Technology had started seeping in the education system. It was percolating, but not available to all. Teachers were not very well equipped as far as technology is concerned. In fact, students knew more about technology than teachers. Then came education 3.0, where data was present in abundance. Technology was everywhere. You could have information at the click. Students were ready to have online sessions. MOOCs were available. Blended learning was there. Flipped classroom model was there. So again, but even then we were talking about in terms of teaching and not in terms of learning. As far as the educational institutions went, we talked about hours of teaching. We talked about output-based and not the outcome-based. We didn't talk much about the learning, making them students learn how to learn. And then came education 4.0, where technology really played a pivotal role. We were talking of artificial intelligence. We were talking of cloud computing. We were talking of augmented reality, virtual reality, immersive education, experiential education. And as per the nomenclature goes, currently we are at education 4.0 and trying to go towards education 5.0. Now the basic difference between education 4.0 and 5.0 is 4.0 technology is at the center, the hub. Whereas 5.0, we want it to be a humanitarian education where humans are going to be at the center. We want students to inculcate the character more than creativity, critical thinking, competence, but most importantly, the character as well, the ethics value, the moral values, the art of living, to be self-resilient, to be able to take chances in the in unknown area, to have that will, to have that grit. So this is all when skills, the basic skills, to be able to give that virtues to them. So that's more about education 5.0.
Thank you. That probably connects the dots about this topic itself. Let me move to Ms. Sridevi, someone who actually worked in startups and now actually driving the similar culture in the current educational societies. Most important is we would like to hear from you on the challenges that you have been seeing from the culture of the students and the teachers, something that you can share with us on what your observations are and how you are trying to overcome that today.
Thank you, Ramesh, for the generous introduction, and thank you, Dr. Ravinder, for giving an overview of Education 1.0, 2.0, 3, 4, and 5.2. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Sridevi. I head Venture Development Centers in Geetham University. We at Geetham believe that innovation and entrepreneurship mindset is the key for the progress, for the growth of youth in the coming days, coming years. I personally believe that this mindset of innovation and entrepreneurship is going to be a game changer for India as a country in the next 10 years. What we have till now, we have huge human capital, we have huge tech human capital. I agree with that totally. But how are we equipping our young generation, our youth, to be prepared for the VUCA world, the ever-changing world, the fast-paced technological advancements is something we have to look into. I think Education 5.0 gives us a lot of chance, lot of, I think it gives more emphasis on the all-round development of the student versus singular development of the core knowledge or the technology knowledge. So I'll add more points as we go ahead. With not much ado, I would like to give the mic to Nathan ji.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay, even as I start, I want to just check with the audience out here. How many of you want to listen to stories? My God, shameless people. I thought you'd come here to listen to words of wisdom and so on. Okay, here goes. So once, many, many years ago, there was a Kabliwala. This Kabliwala came from Kabul, and he came to sell all his kaju, kishmish, all that, which is what he did. And his daughter had told him that as you come back, Papa, please get me something really nice. He had forgotten all about that. And just as he was getting on to the borders, he noticed that as he was sitting on the shade of a large banyan tree, there were a lot of parrots around. And what he did was he took up a stone and he threw it into the branches, and one of the parrots fell down from there. And he picked up that parrot, he put it in his jhola, and he wanted to take it for his daughter. So he went home, and his daughter flew into his arms and said, Papa, what have you got for me? She says, well, I got a lovely parrot, slightly injured, but we will take care of her. They built a beautiful golden cage and gave her the best of kaju, kishmish, all that money could buy. And they didn't realize that time has passed. The parrot learned to speak, and she was the best of friends with his daughter. Well, it was time for the Kabliwala to come back to India. When the Kabliwala was to come to India, he went and checked with all his family members, do you need anything from India? So daughter says, I've got everything in this parrot. I don't need anything from India. Wife said, nah, everything is here. So he said, well, then I'm off. Then the parrot was fluttering and says, hey, hello, I need something from India. So he goes up to the parrot and says, what do you need from India? He said, I need you to go to that same tree, meet all my brethren, and give them this message. What is the message? I live in a golden cage. I'm fed very well. Best of love and care that money could buy. But I'm very unhappy. I'm very sad. And I don't have freedom. I don't have freedom. I'm not free. I'm very sad. Just tell them that. Came to India, sold his goods, came back to the same tree, and then he called everybody and says, hey, listen, I got some news for you. The news is, she's very sad, very unhappy. She doesn't have freedom, but she lives a great life, but she's very unhappy. And as soon as he said this, he said, this is the message that my parrot has asked me to share with you. As soon as he said this, one of the parrots from the tree fell down dead. He was very upset, but he didn't know what to do with it. So he proceeded on his journey, came back to Kabul, went to his house, and there was his daughter. Daughter was very happy because Papa is back, but the person who was the happiest was the parrot. And the parrot says, "What news? What news? What have you brought for me? What is the message?" He goes up to the parrot and says, "You know what, parrot? I came all the way, gave them this message, and as soon as I said that you're very unhappy, very sad, very disenchanted with life, one of the parrots fell down dead." One of the parrots fell down dead. And as soon as this parrot, which is in the cage, heard that, she fell down from the perch dead. She fell down dead. Now he was very unhappy, daughter was very unhappy, didn't know what to do. So he decided he'll give her the best burial. Got a nice, beautiful golden casket and called all his friends, big dawat. And he takes that parrot very gingerly out of the cage and puts that parrot onto the casket. And as soon as he releases his hand, the parrot flew up, sat in a place, in a perch which is far away that he could reach, and says, "Thank you for the message. Thank you for the message." So he was very psyched. He says, "What is the message?" So he said, "Master, thank you for the message. The message is very clear. The message is, in order to live sometimes in order to live, you have to die. Sometimes in order to live, you have to die." Thank you. This is possibly one of the most inspiring of stories that I believe in, because we all come with our own set ideas. We all believe that this is the only way that we should be working. And what I see out here in this grand hall, with all the people around, is many people have broken away from the usual pattern. So today, if you have ISF, it's because somebody chose to say, in order to live, I have to kill all the ideas that I was always born with, to say this is how you will lead life. I'm very, very happy today because sitting in the audience is one such person. He goes by the name of Chinmay. And Chinmay is this gentleman. Chinmay, thank you for being here. Chinmay, thank you, Chinmay. Chinmay was a placement coordinator for Chitkara University. And day in and day out, all he did was, he used to be very upset that people go to all the IITs, the triple IITs, all the Geetham universities, but they don't go to the hinterland. You have the best of talent. There must be a way to bring all that talent on a level playing field. What Chinmay did was very simple. He brought out on a technology platform and he invited people to use this technology both for an assessment point of view and also spread the good word. It's free for everybody. It is free for the university, free for the students. Of course, companies will have to pay a small amount. And today, I'm so happy when I visited that stall out here, he was so full of enthusiasm about what a startup did to his life. So, Chinmay, thank you so much, because what you have done is you have democratized talent. I wish there were more Chinmays in our lives. I wish there were more Chinmays in our lives.
What a great story it is. You have to die to live, which is probably the change that we need to bring in the way we are getting educated and the way we are asking our children to get educated. Over to our superstar Rajnikant in the team, who might have probably watched the movie yesterday, right?
Yes.
Yes, he did. So, Ramesh, you're full of knowledge. You can connect the dots on both the worlds around being an IT leader before to the challenges we have seen in terms of students with a certain education degree coming in and doing a transformational change in the way they learn the knowledge around, to how you are actually putting a related R&D work into Triple IT. Why don't you share a specific connectivity to what we are talking as a subject, Education 5.0?
Sure, Ramesh. Thank you. There's no way I can do justice to what Nathan. I can't. It's a tough act to follow. A very crisp, nice story, and a nice message. Triple IT has a slightly different approach to education. Being a research institution, a research-led curriculum and research-led pedagogy is our focus. And while we had the experiences of Professor Raj Reddy to draw upon, who was the chairman, government had brought him in to help structure, but still the model was new. While there were some CMU learnings that were there in how it was structured, but the model was very new. An undergraduate institution, most research institutions are postgraduate institutions. The very few undergraduate research institutions. The more teaching institutions that also do research, they're not research institutions. IIIT was set up as a research institution that will teach undergraduate programs also. So we say we are a research institution that also teaches. And that's a fundamental shift in mindset, right? Like Nathan said, you have to kill everything else we know about education. And most of our early faculty were from the IITs and such. So that's the system they came from. So what worked there will not work in such an institution. And working outside the government system. While government created us, we were set up as a non-governmental institution. So we're essentially a private institution, no government funding, no government support, which was good. One of the reasons the institution grew very, very fast. Today, it's among the top few in the country for computer science research. And within the first 5-6 years, already in the top 5 in the country for computer science graduates. And so like any example of how our students do, there's the ACM's International Global Programming Contest called ICPC. It's anybody that is like any institution that's good in computer science, the students will participate in that global program. For the last almost 12 or 13 years, IIIT team has been in the final round every year. And so they the top few in the India round and then get to the main round. And every few years, they also get into the final 10. It's a huge, I mean, they go to ICPC and there's one more thing called Google Summer of Code. Similarly, majorly sought after. Anyone that goes to Google Summer of Code finals gets hired into Google, into the core R&D. And every year there are students from IIIT that go. Now, like they say, well, that's a visible result. The secret is in the kitchen, right? What happens inside. I think one, there's a different approach to education in IIIT from the beginning. The founding initial, Professor Raj Reddy is an extremely passionate a person, very passionate about technology at the bottom of the pyramid, at the kind of the fringes of the society, rural, and very passionate, saying like, you can't be doing technology like you. He talks about like even today, recently also he spoke about, I heard him talk about it the first time 15 years back, saying that why should it be that like I'm going out somewhere to a village and we can't converse? If I know Telugu, somebody else knows Marathi, why can't we talk in real time? There's a simple device that I'm speaking in Telugu. The other person hears it in Marathi. The person speaks in Marathi, I hear it in Telugu. It is possible, just that there's no money in it, so nobody's investing time and effort into it. Now, so that's him. And then Professor Sangal, who was our first director, is a proponent of value education. So we have a value education model today, which is now, UGC adopted it 15, 20 years back. Almost 20 lakh, 2 million teachers, graduate level, I mean, university, faculty, have gone through that program. It's a very unique approach to teaching. You can't teach morals, ethics, value. You can't preach. So this whole thing is about like in small groups, a whole batch, 300 students in groups of 18. 2 faculty. So it's our most invested course. We do 2 semesters. There's Value Education 1 and Value Education 2. And where the whole idea is to provoke a conversation. So there are topics, very rough outline. Now, we just have to get these students thinking. These are undergrad students, right? This is done in first and second year. So they're 18, 19 years old. And you have to provoke a thinking, and that's why it's in small groups. And it works very well. I mean, while we are known for our research, we're known for our technology, we're known for our graduates, some of the best computer science graduates in the country come out of IIIT. And, but there are things like this. I mean, the research-based curriculum, so which, lot of it, like for instance, they're the best programmers in the country, and we don't teach programming. In the first year, C is taught, nobody works on C. We teach C because C is good to teach the fundamentals of programming. They're all very good in every other language, like Python, for instance, today is very hot. They're probably the best Python programmers in the country, and we don't teach them Python. Now, when we teach something in language technologies, any of the AI areas, we teach the concept, we teach the math behind it, and there are a lot of assignments to be done. They have to learn Python to do the assignments. They have to learn all the math libraries to kind of do the assignments. So we teach the concepts, make them kind of implement the concepts, but we don't teach them programming. But in the process of doing it, they pick up programming. So the key tenet of the research-led pedagogy model that we have is like, they learn to learn, which is very important. I mean, like, so while yes, there are some of the graduates with best understanding of technology, they are graduates with probably best in programming in the country, but that is not what they're about. Well, that is there, and that is important. 2 things, one is like the system teaches them to learn. By design, we don't know spoon feeding, no tutoring, and like, so we teach them to learn, which is very important. The values, amazing bunch of people. All academicians are philosophers, and all academicians are socialists at heart. Because they've said no to industry jobs and come to academics. They are socialists at heart. They are philosophers. That's anyway given. Now, on top of it, they are in tripartite environment. When somebody like Professor Rajadi, who has won the equivalent of Nobel Prize in 94, before even tripartite started, he's so grounded. Nobody can throw their weight around or throw their ego around. When somebody like him is so grounded, howsoever good you are, so that's a culture, the ethos in the campus is like extremely grounded. The value, these combinations, like our current director, PJ Narayanan, keeps using this, saying this a lot. I think we all believe in it. We prepare our graduates for the last job, not the first job. See, skill-oriented preparation is for the first job. And like, while they do have probably the best skills in their graduating class, but that's not what we teach them. That's something they've learned. We are teaching them many more things in life. And like, if we do, I don't know how well we're doing. We will wait. Our first batch is still only in mid-career. They're all in the mid-40s. And they still have another 20, 25 years of active life. So we will see what they do in life. But we hope that if the system works, they'll all be doing some phenomenally good things in society and life as they grow. And we will know, like, have we prepared them for the last job? But that's our endeavor, at least. Prepare them for the last job. I think as we talk about Education 5.0, reimagining education, technology allows many different things now. As we reimagine, I think this is something to keep in mind. While skills are important, that should not be the focus or the only focus.
That's great analogy, and thanks to PJN, we need to prepare the students for the last job. What a great thought it is. Obviously, we don't know what the last job is going to be, but we can guess how the things are changing in the system in the next 5 years. The question to ask is, are we at least getting prepared for the next 5 years, right? So with that comment, and sometimes we have to die to live, to making the students get a much better understanding and awareness about innovation and entrepreneurship, apart from just getting marks, to getting a clarity about all the education levels and where we are today. I think it's a good first round of getting the inputs around. Before I go to the second round, any comments on what you heard so far?
I would just like to add one thing to just reaffirm. So I would say we don't have to prepare our students for earning livelihood. We have to prepare them for the art of living, for being happy, for being able to add values to the system they are living in. So being happy and spreading happiness, and I think where we are sitting is a live example of that.
Thank you. So getting on to a realistic situation, if you go and talk to the educational institutions, they say the corporates are demanding engineers, and because they are demanding more computer science engineers, we have no other option to shut down the other branches and focus on it. If you go to corporates, they say, we are not getting the rightly educated people, so we have to make them unlearn everything and make them new learn everything around. If you go to startups, there are only a very small percentage of the startups who actually ignite the minds of the people to get into entrepreneurship. But I think India needs more startup thinking. If we need to get ready for the future, I don't think we can survive with services as an industry. You know very well that many of you heard this low code, no code. And quite frankly, I got an email from Deloitte just 4 days back. We will provide low code, no code services. So every company is adopting to that model. That means less and less programming, more and more analytical thinking is going to be the future mindset we need to create in the students. So
what we want and what we get. So I just put this down. What organizations need, companies, organizations, what we need is the 3 C's. The 3 C's are, 1, critical thinking. Second one is collaboration. The third one is communication. We don't want people to speak the king's English. The queen is gone. So, but communication, do we communicate well? So these are the 3 C's. If I look at what are the 3 P's that we need from students, we are looking at practical knowledge. Everything that comes from the students till now has been a lot about theory that has happened. We need presence of mind. Are they people who will be able to stand up on their feet? Because, you know, if our life is about serving, never give up. Because these are the people that industry wants. What we also see as big asks are, what are the issues? The issues that we have is, one, there is an expectation mismatch. Loganathan joining an organization, discovering that he didn't want to do the kind of work that he signed up for. He signed up because of group pressure. Everybody got a job. I have not got a job, so I might as well get a job. So they go in, and that's a problem for the industry because we don't quite know. People have come in with misplaced expectation. Ramesh, you touched upon that very well. We are looking for skills, the latest skills. Unfortunately, even when you get to the college, if you're saying, well, in my days, it used to be COBOL programming, right? So we don't need COBOL. We don't need C++. But we are looking at something that you can readily use. What do we want? What does the industry want? We want plug and play. People should come in. They should immediately be able to be deployed on work, on projects. That's plug and play. Okay, if it is not plug and play, if they cannot be plugged, can they be powered and readied? Do they have everything within them to go out and get that job done? The third one is tikau, which is long lasting. Will people stay in a job long enough? We want people to come in from colleges, stay with us for a certain period of time. That's all a very big ask. What we get is far from what we actually have. So currently what we do is, we get people, lot of people, many of them not ready for the industry. So we spend a lot of time trying to educate them, trying to train them, get them job ready. And by the time they are ready for the job, some of them lose steam because they don't have this ability to persevere. So we want people of that kind. Second, we also want people who will be able to stand up and say, this is what I need, this is what I would wish for. We don't have that. Currently, I'm struggling to find a way to get people from the hinterland. I don't want everybody from the Hyderabad of the world, or the Chennais, or the Bangalore, or the lovely Delhi, all the metropolis. We have covered them all. We want people from places where we will find it very difficult to get that talent, because that talent is important for us. I don't care which part of the country they come from.
No, it's absolutely a great point. I liked all the 3 C's you mentioned. I made a note of it here. I'm going to repeat them. Critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. On the 3 P's, practical knowledge, presence of mind, perseverance. If you're okay, I can also add the problem-solving mindset is so important, because as long as they can do that. Mohinish, who is actually sitting in the audience, is an young entrepreneur, is a part of the DPS, public school management, and many other. He was talking about the fact that the COVID really accelerated the learning to a different level. And we all learned that we can learn virtually. It's not necessary that we have to physically sit in a classroom, which is a great point. Thank you for bringing that up in the discussion, Mohinish. And in that matter, I would like to hear from you, Ramesh. If you were to, specifically the examples that Nathan shared, what else you think might be beneficial, especially if we are looking for the students to come into the corporate sector or to a startup sector?
Right, boot camps and programs that all the companies run. Now, if the program has to be effective, they should be having the capacity to learn. Right? Now, our system creates exam-taking machines. So they are not, the focus not on learning, the focus on answering exam papers. Now, I think that's the first thing to undo. University system should undo that. Unfortunately, the Fidjis and the Chaitanyas and Arenas and Akashas do what they do. The society has a demand. I mean, people blame them. I don't blame them. I blame the parents, right? There's a demand, they're servicing the demand. Yes, they do it in a very unscrupulous way. That's a different problem, but it is what it is. But the university system doesn't have that. But our universities are not that imaginative either, creative in how we do things in the universities, right? most of the institutions again focus on exam. It's very large university, like JNTU in Telangana, or the technical university here. Almost all the private colleges come under one university, and they end up creating yet another exam-taking system. Right? The university colleges can be a little bit more flexible, but when you have 200 colleges in the system, then it becomes a very kind of regimented, and which means the colleges are again now focusing on creating ranks and scores and grades and marks. So I feel that is the single biggest problem. I love going to liberal arts. I mean, Nathan's son went to Flame, and at that time, the only person I knew who very happily sent his child to a liberal arts program, right? I love liberal arts or anything other than engineering because there's an element of heart in it. Even medicine, there is, right? They have to struggle so much to go. There's heart in people that go to medicine. Less than 10% of engineers have heart in what they want to do. Now, if they have heart, they will do things more naturally. Now, I think that is something we need to create in the engineering, which is the most most significant undoing of that system. Is that like, we don't let our kids to be creative. We don't let them explore. We don't let them go beyond marks. I told my kids when they were in school, they have to get suspended at least once. Actually told them, right? My daughter was her class prefect when she was in 8th class, and she was complaining about 2 kids who were extremely mischievous. One went to a good university in the US, other went to IIT Madras. But they were super mischievous, and she used to get, so I told her at that time, someday I would like you to get suspended. One day they got suspended, she was very happy. They finally got some punishment. I said, I would like you to get suspended. I told my son also. But I feel they need to explore the boundaries. We need to push them towards the boundaries, discover the boundaries, not keep them in a very tight shell, which is what our current university systems do.
It's a great point, and I want, just before Professor Ravinder speaks about it, the mindset of the humane touch makes a big difference, because this is exactly the genesis of why we are losing people to the market, because they are not connected to their company or to the role, and that becomes actually a challenge. You touched upon very sensitive topics. Let's hear from Professor Ravinder.
I would continue with what he touched, especially on the evaluation system. And when we talk about engineering, forget about the evaluation at the end. Let's start with the entrance exams, where the students have, like, they start preparing right from 8th grade onwards. And when they're giving an exam, there are a set of questions, multiple choice questions, and you have to give answers in a stipulated time, keeping in mind there's a negative scoring. Now, how do you think a student would look at a question and has the time to actually appreciate the question? Wow, what a question. It's talking of something new. It's really, one needs to critically think about it. It's something like a creative thinking. He doesn't have that time because he is bent upon passing that, and he doesn't have the time to actually appreciate the problem. He's just, because he has been given all the tips that these are the tips you have to do, or certain gimmicks where you can actually do the questions in the minimum amount of time, and he knows, okay, this type of question and you have to answer it in this manner. This is how you crack. But you are actually not giving them that opportunity of seeing what is being asked, of appreciating what is being asked, of appreciating the problem. So what I always say, it's always attention. It is being attentive, and it is having that empathy where you identify the problem. Once you have identified the problem, then you know how to solve it. So the most important thing is identifying the problem, as rightly said by Einstein. If I'm given 60 seconds to give a solution, I'll probably have 55 seconds just to think about the problem. Once I've identified the problem correctly, reaching to solution is not a big issue.
No, what a great example.
So, similarly, what I just want to say is that somewhere our education system keeps on talking about creativity, critical thinking, but our evaluation system somewhere kills that. Unknowingly is killing that. We are not giving our students that freedom, that flexibility. Okay, you can choose. Now maybe with NEP coming into picture, it is there, that you can choose your own curriculum. Do what you like, do what you love. And you can integrate and you can go beyond your conventional classroom. I think that's very important.
Thank you, Professor. Sridevi, over to you. Your thoughts around where the root cause of the current problems are and what the demands of the industries.
Well, I agree with all my esteemed panelists here. Well, I have different take on solving this problem from the root. How many of our faculty, which includes me, have experience of industry, knows what is happening in the industry? How many industries have people who have some knowledge, who have immersed themselves in academia? This is a question I would like to ask. I personally think the buy-in from industry, which includes corporate, should be more. The engagement should be more. They should be part of the curricula. They should be part of the pedagogy. They should be part of many things. They just can't brush off, or they just can't say, oh, we are doing a lot for the academia. We are giving internships. We give 30 internships. We give 300 internships. And our internships, I always am amazed at, you want a civil engineer who did BTech in 4 years, but doesn't have any exposure whatsoever, and he becomes your engineer. He gets hired, and the industry person or the corporate says this doesn't have the talent or the knowledge. My take here is, when a MBBS doctor has to do 1 year of house surgeon before actually practicing, that should apply for engineers and other professions as well, which we are not doing. Are we ready for that? Is our industry, is our academia ready for that? Is a government as a policy ready for that? At the same time, I have my faculty, when I was studying, they're still teaching the same subject even now. They never reinvented themselves. They never went out into the industry. How about we, this is again a policy decision. How many universities are ready to send their faculty to industry for 1 year as an immersion, so that they can get hands-on exposure and experience about what's happening in the industry? For example, if my thermal engineering professor who was teaching us 20 years ago is teaching the same thing even now, how is that relevant? Of course, fundamentals of thermal engineering will not change, but applications will definitely change. The systems have definitely changed. And to what extent are our 1,000+ universities in this country have that kind of labs, that kind of tinkering areas where students can actually get hands-on exposure or experience, that when they go into the industry, they are ready to be productive on day one? Pardon me if I'm being too forthright, but that is the sad state of affairs. For me, engineering doesn't mean only computer science. I'm telling this holistically. Even a computer science graduate, if he graduates from any university, in 4 years, what he's learning is not enough to become productive. That is the reason almost all the IT companies I know again invest 6 months of induction program or training program, whatever they call it. They spend tons of money in training this fresher, giving him salary and again training him for 6 months. Then this person becomes productive. Then this person becomes employable, I'll say. So I think fundamentally we should rethink. AICTE keeps telling that we are reviving the syllabus, we are doing that, we are doing this. But are they in sync with the changing times? Are they in sync with the technological advances or even the advances of student mindset? Today, a 10-year-old can operate an iPhone far better than me. He can even repair an iPhone. That is the IQ level today's kids have. Are we geared up for that? This is a question I would like to drop to all the panelists. Education 5.0 is preparing ourselves and preparing our government systems or policy systems and our faculty and the corporates for this coming up storm which is going to hit us.
Yeah, Sridevi, I'm very, very tempted to respond to that. If you'll allow me, Ramesh, I'll keep it really short.
Please go ahead.
So it's almost like this, that I go to universities much like going to an IKEA shop and I want a cupboard. So a cupboard is very neatly packed into small components and I bring it home, except that they don't give me that sheet which helps me how to assemble the whole stuff. So that is exactly what happens. So I come back and I have to figure out for myself how to put this and assemble this whole thing together. By the way, very good talent. This is exactly the stuff that we want. But I don't have that particular sheet which will tell me, or that instructions. I have just about 4 suggestions that can make some of this possible, just building on your idea, if you will permit me, Ramesh.
Please go ahead.
I think right now, I'll look at two items. One is short term, one is long term. Short term, I look at train and hire, which means I'll get onto campus, train them in exactly the kind of skills that we need, and then we hire them. That's one. Practical training in partnership, because that's very important. So we can work on several things, including the ideas that you spoke about, Ramesh. Third one is any project-based is more in the nature of, well, I have this problem to solve. Can you do this for me? So that gets them to be very close to the reality of what really happens. And of course, you talk about internships. I talk about things like hackathons because people love that. People love a challenge. So those are the things. Long term, we should be looking at, beyond all this, mentoring, adopting colleges. I also look at things very simply, career counseling. I may not want to do this kind of job. So if I get to that knowledge early enough, it helps. Last but not the least is, can we also get onto advisory boards, which means the two of us partner and say, this is what we want. And then receive feedback both from you as you would receive from the industry. So short term and long term. So back to you, Ramesh.
Thank you.
Challenge. The whole talent problem I've always been holding, that it's an overrated problem, right? If you look at what Deloitte trains or what State Street might train for different functions, it's not even a uniform, homogeneous training, right? There may be some cultural aspects, work approach aspect, which is common, right? But then a lot of the domain trainings are very, very different. There is no way, if like any company that's hiring like say 1,000, 2,000 people, in maybe 20, 30 different types of functions for which you have your own training modules, 3 years, right? I remember when I started working with other colleges, I was in the city working in a startup, but it's not much connected outside. But the first time I got connected to a few colleges, Triple of course, I started teaching. But few other colleges, I remember asking one of the colleges here, which is in Hyderabad, a good college. They were saying at that time, some of the larger companies were hiring at about 2.25 lakhs per year, 2006. Today, bulk of the jobs are around 3 lakhs. Inflation adjusted, it is like that day's salary of 1 lakh maybe, right? Now, it's a win-win. Companies hire because like there's huge supply. Now, the downside is like you have to invest 3 months in training. So your 3 lakh component becomes 3.25 lakhs or 3.5 lakhs, right? Because of the investment in training. But it works. As an industry, we've been growing like crazy, doubling every 6 years for the last almost 18, 20 years now. Before that, we are tripling. But even last 20 years, in the slowed down environment, we're doubling every 5, 6 years as an industry. So I don't believe that's a problem. I think attitudes and those are like, I mean, I would worry about why are people having such a short-sighted view, switching for 15% raise, switching for like all kinds of trivial reasons. I feel our industry, especially IT industry, because that's the only industry I understand, has this huge sense of entitlement, right? And they think like everything is their right. It's their right not to work. It's their right to a 40% raise. It's their right to a promotion, and they don't have to give anything back. There's a huge attitude problem, right? I think all of us see that, right? I mean, if in our workforce, less than 20, 30% people come with the right attitude. Partly the problem is because they took up engineering to begin with without the heart in it. But it's also the system is not inspiring enough. I feel as to reimagine education, we have to see how to weave those in. Again, we don't want to go and create motivation classes and how to get excitement, how to live happily, not those. Can we make their courses more exciting? Can we make their projects more exciting? Can we make their assignments more exciting? Can we make the whole thing like where we rub off some excitement onto them as they're in college? So when they come out as excited graduates that are excited about what they are doing and what they want to do. Today, that industry hires people that is completely devoid of any excitement to work. that's the biggest problem more than anything else. Skill is not the issue.
I heard you. Professor Ravinder, before I actually start to wind up, because I'm also positive of time.
I would only like to add two things, or maybe sum up two things. First thing, what we all talked about, yes, we have to bridge the gap between academia and industry. And may I also say communities. So there's a gap between the community needs, industria, and academia, but that has been taken care, the roadmap has been defined in National Education Policy 2020. Now it has to be seen how effectively it is implemented. If it is not only black and white, but actually implemented the way it is written, then what all problems we have been discussing are being taken care of. It's an inquiry, it emphasizes on inquiry-based learning. It emphasizes on having industrial, not only like inputs from the industry to tune their curriculum according to that, so that the industry-academia gap is bridged. They also talk about having sustainable development goal to be in center, so that we have problems from the communities. Let's say you have a problem of garbage disposal. Let's say you have a problem of traffic jams. You have real world problems which are given to the students to come up with their innovative ideas and find out the solutions. Since we already have, we have the technology. So we are leveraging technology to overcome these needs of the society. So that is already there and then when you talked about skill enhancement courses and the courses which will develop your character, which we call it as value addition courses. So Delhi University has already adopted many of the skill enhancement courses and value addition courses. When we talk of value addition courses, they talk about Vedas, they talk about Ayurveda as the health system, they talk about nutrition, they talk about empowerment, they talk about digital literacy. So there are the value addition courses which are being taken care in National Education Policy. So what all we have discussed has been taken care in a very beautifully crafted document, but what has to be seen is whether it's implemented in that aspect or not, and how the governance is being there, how is it being implemented throughout the country, not only in metropolitans, but throughout the country. That has to be seen.
Great points about how you mentioned and how you connected the dots. So we have about maybe about 7-8 minutes. So we are sitting in a place where this particular institution is doing an excellent job in identifying talent from the villages, bringing them to a place like this, and making them some of the well-educated students leaving this institution with pride of great balanced knowledge, education, skills, and an excellent nutritious food that they have, right? So I would like to hear from the panel one message that you can give it for our audience as well as for the corporates. What can they do to make sure that the model this institution adopted can spread to the rest of the nation?
I'll go first. I think it's phenomenal what they're doing, trying to find these kind of very gifted kids from the rural and often economically weaker sections. So Prof. Rajadi's idea, but the state adopted it. There is this thing called Rajiv Gandhi University for Knowledge Technologies. And the whole idea is to beat the coaching system. And based on 10th class board marks, every mandal, top 3 are invited for admission. I mean, it's just beautiful thought, right? They don't have to apply. They're invited with admission offered to this fully funded 6-year program, right? Residential program, 11th and 12th, and then 4 years of engineering. Fully funded 6-year program. Top 3 rankers from each mandal in this 10th class board exam are invited, being offered admission. Now, it's a fantastic system. These are all people, 70-80% of them may not afford to go to a coaching institute. And if they don't go to a coaching institute, they probably don't think of engineering. And like some of them would have, because the fee waiver and such, might have gone into engineering. But many of them may not have. Now, it's a very transformational in nature, right? And then these are people that probably appreciate what they've got. That sense of entitlement is very low because they're very appreciative of the opportunity they got, right? Now, that's one example which I don't know why we haven't done more of. There are only 5 of the 3, start off with 3 institutions. First batch, look at the guts of Prof. Raj Reddy and the state administration at that point. when they started in 2008. First batch, 6,000 students admitted in one shot, 2,000 in each campus. And the day one, there were 6,000 students. I mean, I just still can't believe how can somebody think and execute at that scale. And hostels, fully residential, faculty, curriculum, and being able to teach 2,000 students in like 20, 30 sections. And and they did it. But sadly, it started off at 2,000 each, 6,000 students, and today it's at 10,000. I think we need a lot more of it. That's one example. The other example, even amongst universities, we unfortunately are on the receiving end of that whole rat race, right? We get the top rankers, unfortunately. We're trying to do our own alternate ways of admission, but that's again creating yet another race. But there's one that we take a lot of pride in. We call it spec channel. It is two channels. One, anybody that's passed the National Olympiad and NTSC talent exam, they directly get called for an interview. They don't have to write any test, the minimum qualifying marks in the board exam. They directly get called for the interview. We take about 6 to 10 students because that's a small pool. There is the other exam, which is an even fantastic. It's called CBSE Udaan Scholarship. It's for rural gifted kids and also economically weaker. 3 boxes checked. Rural, economically weaker, gifted kids. 100 of them every year. We offer all 100 of them direct interview. And fully paid up seat. It's sponsored through CSR. If CSR doesn't fund, our alumni fund it. 4 years, 4 lakhs per year. 2.5 lakhs for the fees and 1.5 lakhs for boarding. Fully funded 4-year program. And fortunately on one side, it's girls. Unfortunately, it's girls because our society thinks boys should go to coaching and not the girls. Sadly, that's the unfortunate part. Fortunately, we get a lot of girls through that program. And, but these are still drops, like I said, in the ocean. I know industry does, I know State Street does, Deloitte does. You go to kind of consciously go get diversity, social diversity in hiring, rural and like other. But I think we need to do a lot more. We can and should be doing a lot more.
Quickly, I have 2 ideas. One is for all the parents in this particular group, that includes many of us on this side of the chair as well. Plant the idea to your child that they could be on their own. That's a very significant ask. Because you never know if there is a Narayan Murthy sitting in our midst or a Mukesh Ambani, and you can name your favorite industrialists or the most successful Nandan Nilekenis that you can have. It's very important for us. But the one for organizations is pretty much building on what Ramesh talked about is, can you look at inclusion not as a gender issue, but inclusion as a talent issue, and get people as part of your organization. Inclusion is inclusion of hidden talent.
Well, yeah, everything has been covered. I still will vouch on one thing. Industry needs to be more involved in academia. Maybe they can start adopting a college or a department of a college based on their core interest. This will be a paradigm shift, not only for the industry, for the students and for the faculty as well, because they will have total access to what that particular industry is doing in that domain.
I think what Ramesh said initially, hackathons. So in hackathons, we normally have problems from defense, from agriculture, from textiles, and they give those problems which they are facing, and they're open to the students. And then the students have real world problems and they find out solutions. So in the same manner, the way Sri Devi said, that we should have industrial collaborations where they actually come and adopt a college or a department, or they could even give their set of problems to each department, that these are the set of problems, or they want students to work upon them, and then they can be given as projects to the students where the students know they are giving a valuable inputs for a real life problem. So the amount of satisfaction and the exposure they have is great. And I would say it's all about 3 things: desirability, viability, and feasibility. So what we want, whether we can achieve it, and whether it's going to be there sustainable for a long run, that model has to be seen. So most importantly, what hats off, and I think a big round of applause and a standing ovation for Shri Satya Sai institutions, which are giving access to education, equality, equity, affordability, accountability, and the quality. Nothing more can be asked of any educational institution.
Well said, Ravinderji.
That's awesomely put together. Let me just wind up with one update for you, as well as a summary of what I heard from my panel. Several years back, when we realized that in the industry where I belong to, the banking, financial services, and the insurance industry, it goes by the acronym BFSI, what we realized is we are finding it very challenging to move global roles to India. Because the students who come are good in problem solving, critical thinking, they are good in communication, but functional knowledge is lacking with them. And if you have to face the client to work on the financial service related products and services offerings, people need to have that functional knowledge. Fortunately, we have got the IIMs, but it can only produce a very, very limited number of students, and they can cater only to limited number of jobs. But if you have to really touch people who are coming up from the villages, small towns, and what is really lacking as an opportunity for them is the connectivity and knowing where the opportunities are. So taking all this into account, we have recently kick-started a consortium, which is a non-profit organization called BFSI Consortium. This is initiated in Telangana just about 2 weeks back on August the 2nd in the presence of the IT Minister, Shri K.T. Ramarao. In this process, in this consortium, people like me and people pretty much sitting here, the industry leaders, the academicians, the consulting companies, as well as even the startup companies can come together, and we can go back and introduce a much better relevant education back to the students. While it is still notional, our goal is to introduce a finance minor degree into engineering across the entire state of Telangana. What does that mean is students can choose to be a part of a banking financial services industry. They can choose the channel for non-technology work or technology work, and they will have to go through the entire 7 semesters of learning, so that way we can hire them with more relevant knowledge. The reason I'm stating that here is we are committed that we will partner with the institutions of Satyasai Trust to ensure that those students get a similar education, those who are thriving to be a part of this BFSI industry. I wanted to share that information being a part of this particular consortium group. Lastly, it is such a great opportunity to sit on with 3 R's and one N and one S. And the most important is we have heard what the current challenges are. We also heard what the practical outcomes that we can focus. The takeaways I think we are going to have is how do we build a much stronger bridge between industry and academia. That's number one. That means it could be adopting a department to a college to a location so that people can feel connected from the places where they belong to. That's number one. Number two, apart from giving internship program opportunities for the students, I think it's time to make sure the professors and the teachers actually get immersion programs paid by the college, but sitting in a corporate sector, so they can learn the real projects, problem solving. They can impart that knowledge back to the students, connecting the reality of what's really happening in the corporate world back to the academic institutions. Number three, Ramesh touched upon it, Nathan touched upon it, that if you are not passionate about what you're learning and you're not having that human touch, how much ever that you learn is not going to go anywhere. Hopefully, the Education 5.0 will introduce that thought process into what we are trying to do collectively. As a growing nation, where we are aspiring to be one of the leaders for the world in terms of providing talent with such a large population of 1.4 billion and growing, it's important. It's time for all of us to look at ways to give back to the communities where we belong to. If you are an academic leader, go back, work with your teachers on how they can learn and get ready for the future so they can impart a better knowledge. If you are a parent, talk to your students just like the way we have heard from the panel that it's not necessary that you have to just get marks. It's okay to fail. It's okay to get debarred. It's okay to do something. But make sure you're picking up the critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration, and many, many other things to come together, because those are the important skills we look for, not just the marks that we need to carry as a message back. And lastly, the startup ecosystem need to flourish. That is where the India Startup Festival is right now here. So we have a greater opportunity for the corporates to connect with the startups. It could be the fintech to health tech to any other technology. But at the same time, this mindset has to go back to the students. Sridevi is among our panel who is actually doing that work. I think each of us can find a way to connect back and give back to those organizations as well. And I will summarize by saying it is an absolute privilege to be a part of this panel and to moderate and then listen through the entire section. So a big round of applause for the panel members. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you all the panelists to be part of this discussion and the roundtable. And we are taking away a lot of insights that you have shared just now with all of us and for our future generation of kids coming up.
So when we started, we also started with 3 C's. We used to ask one question. If you see a tiger going inside a jungle, what will you do? Every time I take a session with the students, someone will tell I'll throw a stone. Someone will tell I will run. Someone will tell I'll climb on a tree. But in reality, you have nothing to do. Whatever will do, the tiger will do with you. But I'm going to talk about a situation where you have been born and brought up in jungle. You have come across, witnessed such wild animals, bears and tigers very often. Now if you see a tiger in a jungle, what will you do? You will take a stone, throw at the tiger, and as if you are treating a dog or a goat or some kind of a domestic pet. What it is, these 3 C's. We talk about consistency. The consistency makes you competent. The consistency and competency makes you confident. That's where we build this platform, providing assessment and evaluation platform to analyze yourself, assess yourself, and become consistent. Your consistency makes you competent, and your consistency and competency makes you confident. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching TV9 Bharatvarsh, the new Hindi news leader. TV9 Kannada, the king of Karnataka. TV9 Telugu, the forever Telugu superstar. TV9 Marathi, the ultimate star. TV9 Bangla, the choice of Bhadralok. Money9, India's first multimedia multi-language personal finance platform. News 9 Plus, world's first English news OTT platform. TV9 Digital, fastest growing digital news network. Over 1 billion online video views on YouTube. In 1605, the world read its first newspaper. 1920, the world heard its first radio news. 1980, the world watched its first 24-hour news channel. 1990s, the world started clicking on the first few news websites. 2023, a news revolution is here. Introducing News 9 Plus, the world's first news OTT. Get a heads up on current affairs in a video magazine format. Daily news videos with perspective, insights and analysis. And binge on infotainment and lifestyle web series. Through storytelling that keeps you hooked. All in a first-in-the-world news OTT avatar. News 9 Plus gives you the edge across all connected devices. It's time to cut the cord and stream the future with choice at your fingertips. It's time to take charge of what you want and when you want it. Come on board to reach the most affluent English-speaking audiences through innovative storytelling and disruptive brand integration. TV9.